what systems of the economy, and I don't for one moment arrogate to myself the monopoly of wisdom. These are my thoughts, and my thoughts are informed by certain realities. And I'm using the word modern in a very guarded way. Perhaps the word modern is one that I should avoid. The post-colonial African state is also a neo-colonial state in many ways. And therefore it may have appearances of freedom, but she is not free. Look at what happened in the 1960 in what are the former French colonies. The French, when they were leaving, asked their colonies to vote, yes or no, whether they wanted to remain within the French influence or they did not. The only country that did so was Ahmed Sékou Touré's Guinea. And the other one which nearly did so was Mali with Modibo Keïta, whom you students should know. But the French were very clever, and I'm using the word clever in quotes. They ensured that the former colonies remained under their influence, complete with a currency which until now is controlled and manipulated from Paris. So when we talk about the post-colonial state, we must remind ourselves that it is a neo-colonial state. And that therefore the means of production are still in the hands of the erstwhile colonizer. We don't say this as loudly as we should. But if you are to ask yourself who is in control of the oil in Cameroon, is Total or Elf? If you ask yourself who is in control of the oil in Gabon and the timber in Gabon, it is the French. It means therefore that your typical post-colonial and neo-colonial state is one where there is an unholy alliance between the former colonizer and the ruling elite, who are doing the bidding of the former colonizer. And those who are in the business of using beautiful language once said that once you are a puppeteer, you need not worry. Once you are a puppeteer, you need not worry what the puppet will do. You can predict. You can predict. And I think that most of, I'm simply talking about France for the moment, because France's role in her nation, in her former colonies, is the most pernicious today. One can talk about Portugal. If you talk about the former Portuguese colonies in Africa of Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, you will discover that the presence of Portuguese companies and Portuguese capital is alive and well. And you only need to recruit the people at the very top, and you need not worry about the individuals at the bottom, because, you know, as one person once said, the colonial master was very clever in a devilish way. They gave the Africans the crown, but remained with the jewels of the crown. So that in many ways you have African governments where you have black faces as heads of state, but the industries are still controlled from elsewhere. That is the nature of the colonial. But in my own view, we cannot, as Africans, keep on lamenting, because the problem with us Africans also is that we are prisoners of sorrows and lamentation. So we say, oh, God did, God, let's not allow God to enter into these things which we can do ourselves. God is very busy with very serious issues upstairs. He has given us minds and hearts, and we had better use them, because the divine instruction is to go and subdue the world. On our part, we have allowed the world to subdue us. Then we are complaining, God, you know, and Pastor, you are here. There are certain things that can only be solved by hard work and logic, and yet we think they can be solved by prayer and fasting. That will not happen. So my own view is, we must begin to do things for ourselves. If the land needs to be worked, we must work the land. And we cannot continue to work the land the way Abraham used to work the land with the plows. We've got to mechanize. If, as people say, if Africa did not benefit from the first industrial revolution, we must benefit from the fourth industrial revolution. And you know, in these matters, these very serious matters, nobody invites you. You invite yourself to the dinner table. And you get crushed the dinner table. So that you are noticed. You know, right now, many Africans, and I say this because we Africans, people are on top of the dinner table eating silent steak and caviar, and we are under the table fighting over crumbs. This is what is happening. When you see black on black violence, it is essentially, what are we fighting for? Crumbs. Crumbs. The real meal is on the table. That is where we should be. That is where the good. But you see the problem, when you are under the table, you cannot see what is on the table. You only see the bottom of the table. And therefore, the only thing you can see are the crumbs that have dropped. And I'm suggesting to us, particularly we in the political class, deliberate efforts must be made. I know that in many African countries, we suffered from certain historical advantages by dint of skewed systems of governance, particularly in the economic arena. Here in South Africa, you know that, and even the white people know and appreciate that going forward, it is completely untenable that a small population should have the majority of the land. They know. How then do you do it? Is it for a foreigner to come here and prescribe the solution? No, that would be arrogance. But it's for a foreigner to begin to persuade those who are in the eye of the storm that the sooner you are able to relinquish some of this land in an orderly and in a programmatic manner so that you do not disrupt commerce, the safer you are. Because let me tell you, a hungry and a poor man has no morals to tie him down. He cannot be asked to be orderly. Poverty makes him disorderly. Poverty makes him angry, and anger has no logic. Anger doesn't know what is on its path. If I've not eaten for 10 days and I see you holding cake and ale on 2 hands, oh, I will take them. I will take them even if it includes cutting your hand. I will take them. So in order to ensure that your hands are safe, you must invite me and say, there is cake here. Let us begin to share. But when one is hungry for a long time, you also don't give him a very large dose of food very quickly. You begin slowly, and you educate him. And I believe that that is what we must do in order to solve our problems. We were told by Ray Piri, look, listen, and desire. Let us look, let us listen, and desire to do the right thing for the general good. The last thing is, the last question, what kind of an economic system? When we were students at the university, and normally when you are students at the university, there is a sense in which, number one, you are a fire-breathing pseudo-revolutionary. First of all, you think that you have monopoly of knowledge and wisdom. And all of us suffer from what I call intellectual adolescence. And intellectual adolescence is fed very effectively by the slogans of Marxism, Leninism. Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. We said all those. And I remember when we were university students, we said that the human development has always been from primitive accumulation through to capitalism, through to socialism, and through to communism, where the state withers. And we live in Shangri-La, El Dorado, the land of gold. You and me know that that will not happen. You and me know that the real world is about cutthroat competition. You and me know that each society must have its own unique ways of doing things. You and me know that there is no one size fits all for all societies. You and me know that there are certain standards, certain things, irreducible minimums. One of them is that when we give people, men and women, opportunity to serve us, we want them to serve us. We want them to preside over our resources so that we have food on the table. We want them to serve us so that when we are sick, we have facilities where we can go in an affordable manner. We want them to use our taxes so that we can take our children to school and good quality education where we are taught the right thing. I remember yet another musician who was Fela Kuti of Nigeria, who used to say, "Teacher, don't teach us nonsense." So we want schools where we are not taught nonsense, where we are not told that David Livingstone discovered the Mosi Otunya Falls. No, he was the first Scotsman to see the Mosi Otunya. There were people there who lived with them. In other words, we are saying each society, and the beauty of Africa now, even here in South Africa, you will always have problems. Pastor, let me tell you a short story as I answer this question. I listened to a sermon, and in this sermon, the story is told of this unsettled soul. This unsettled soul was moving from church to church, looking for the perfect church. And he went to many churches until he met a pastor who told him, "I'm told you are looking for the perfect church. You can never find it because you yourself are so imperfect that whenever you enter into any church, it becomes imperfect." And the moral of my story is that each society has its own problems, and civilization, in my view, means the ability to work within your society with its strengths and weaknesses is in a manner that is for the general good. Is South Africa moving in that direction? Perhaps not as fast as we want, because we are impatient. But we must also remind ourselves that even in an era of perfection, there will always be those who seek to disrupt. The first coup attempt was in heaven. The first coup attempt, it didn't succeed. And the perpetrators of the coup were actually expelled, and they live with us, and they are very strong and dangerous. It's Satan and his host. And I'm using this rather melodramatically for me to demonstrate that if it could happen in the abode of perfection, how much more here? How much more here? But the truth is, be told, it can be done. And I'm saying, therefore, that in many African societies, we are now beginning to realize that capitalism in its classical sense may not be suitable. A friend of mine from Ghana, who is a traditional ruler, has written a book called African Tradition in Good Governance, the Ghanaian Paradigm, Professor Nana Kobinan-Kessie at the University of Cape Coast. And he's trying to say that African societies must now begin to understand how you deal with traditional governance systems in the face of what are current, I don't want to call them modern, but a mix of Western and current practices. How do you deal with them? South Africa has tried to deal with them with the kingdoms. Do you accommodate the kingdoms because they are valid? People respect them. You go to Ghana, you find that they are kingdoms. You go to Nigeria, you find they are kingdoms. And they fit within that arena. But the most important thing, history has demonstrated this time and time again. Many people don't want all the things that we desire. Many people are not interested in Bugatti car. No, they are not. Many people are not interested in curved television, which you of the middle class are humored by. No. Many people don't want to go on holiday to Waikiki Beach in Honolulu. No. Many people just want good food on the table, not meat on a daily basis, not vegetables on a daily basis, a balanced diet. Many people don't want mansion. Many people just need decent housing. Many people just want good roads. Many people just want some change in their pocket so that they can live decently. And I think the countries that have got it right in this regard are the Scandinavian countries. Largely, I'm not saying they are perfect, but look at Norway. Their sovereign fund, as I speak now, is $1 trillion. In other words, notionally, every Norwegian child that is born and will be born in the next 10 years, even those whose parents have not gotten married, notionally, they have in their bank account something in excess of $100,000. Even those who have not been born. That is how you use your resources. But in many African countries, even those whose parents have not been born are in debt. They are in debt. Because our current leaders borrow for this generation and generation yet to be born. So we must do something that changes that, and it can be done. I've seen in the recent, I'm giving a very long answer, but I'm giving it so that it may also kill other potential questions. If you look at a number, and you know, sometimes when you look at CNN, and since I came here, I've received very many phone calls. Are you safe in South Africa? So I sent for to say I'm safe and actually enjoying wine. They can't believe it, because when you listen to the media, you think South Africa is burning. Is burning. So we must, in the nature of things, also begin to tell our story as Africans. And there are things that are happening in Africa. You go to a number of African countries and they are not perfect, but you can begin to see movement. Because the oldest African nation, post-colonial nation, is just over 60 years old, Ghana. And remember, we are doing this in the midst of a system that also wants to pull Africa down. You go to countries such as Ethiopia, they have their own problem, but you can begin to see efforts in some direction to address their problems. You go to Tanzania, you will see people saying dictatorship and other things, but you can begin to see efforts. You go to a country such as Rwanda and you can begin to see some efforts in some direction. You go to countries such as Mauritius, you can begin to see some effort. Every African country is trying to do something. There are others, of course, which have greater problems than others. But I think Africa must now begin to tell our story. I was very happy about a few months ago when West African countries met. I think it was it in Monrovia in Liberia, but one of the African countries, and they say by next year, they are going to use one currency. The ECO. That is a good thing. As I speak today, Africa has 33 currencies. 33 currencies. So when I move out of here with my rand, I go to Mozambique, 120 kilometers away, Mexico. I carry my Mexico, I move another 200 kilometers, I go to Zimbabwe, which has yet to decide whether it is RTGS or the bond. But I find myself in such a situation. I carry my RTGS from Zimbabwe, I move to Zambia, another 1 hour flight, Kwacha. I move from Lusaka and I move to another Kwanzaa. So, and all these currencies are, when we talk of hard currency, there is not a single African currency that is hard. The opposite of hard is soft. So all our currencies are soft currencies. In other words, beyond our boundaries, they are mere paper. So I hold the view, and you young people who are present here, you must begin to stop thinking like us. Stop thinking like some of the people in the new generation. You've got to think differently. You know, China, I listened to the Chinese about a year ago when their leaders, 6,000 of them, gathered in Beijing, and they don't smile and they don't speak in very high tones. And they were thinking about how China is going to relate to the world 100 years from thence. 100 years. Some of you read the Bible a little bit too literally. That Christ said that even birds of the air do not farm, but they have food. That even the lilies of the fields do not do anything, and they have. That is not what Christ meant. So these things that you are saying you are not going to plan, the divine instruction is this. When you are planning, plan as if you'll never die, and when you are praying, pray as if you are dying the next minute. That is the way. That is why the Bible says that you must keep for your up to the 4th generation. So my own view, you young people, they are saying think outside of the box. I'm saying think without the box. Yes. Because the box then becomes a point of reference. Eliminate the box, think without it. They are saying the sky is the limit. Which sky? The sky of the earth? Forget about the sky. Think about the galaxies. They are saying wait and heat the iron while it is hot. No, heat the iron so that it becomes hot. In other words, I hold the view. And I do not know, but I want to use this analogy found in the Bible because it's very powerful, and you don't have to be a believer. But for those who are believers, you will see it a lot more powerfully than anybody else. And there are two of them. One is to be found in the book of Daniel at chapter 3. And in the book of Daniel at chapter 3, there are 3 young men, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, who are named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And what happens is that there is a king called Nebuchadnezzar, and Nebuchadnezzar makes a statue 6 cubits wide, 6 cubits tall, and says everybody must worship it. And they say we are not going to worship it. And they say our Lord will save us, but even if he does not. And I find that powerful. Belief in oneself. Belief in oneself. Sometimes we don't believe in ourselves and in our abilities. You know, these Chinese are very, I don't know whether you see them when they come. I saw very many of them yesterday at OR Tambo. They know what, even when they are walking, you know they know what they are looking for. And when you know what you are looking for, you are likely to get it. So let us learn from other civilizations. And we don't pick their weaknesses, but pick their strengths. That is, to me, the most important thing. Learn from the Chinese, learn from the whites, learn from the Koreans, learn from all civilizations. Each one of us, because God is a God of diversity. And each one of us has our strengths, black, yellow, white, and all those things. And I think we can make it. And we are going to make it. And people like Ray Peary here are telling us that we can make it. None of you here hold the order of Ikamanga. And he did. There is a great, and this is what I conclude with, a great African, whom you must all know. If you did not know him, go and Google about him. He was from Guinea-Bissau. He was called Amilcar Cabral. When he was fighting in the bushes, his name is Nom de Guerre. When you are in the midst of the forest and you shine like a pink poodle, even when the world is blind, they'll regain sight that they may behold you. God bless you.